In this video, I'll follow up on my previous Vcarve Inlay tutorial where I showed you how to dial in your parameters using metric measurements. Today, I'll guide you through Vcarve Inlays, but this time I'll show you my method using Imperial units instead of metric units. We'll take a deep dive into the tried and true Zank Inlay method, which I call the traditional method, and explore the powerful new Vcarve Inlay Toolpath introduced in version 12 of Vcarve Pro and Aspire. Plus, you'll learn how to fine-tune parameters for both endgrain and facegrain inlays with precision. If you're ready to stop being frustrated and start making great inlays, follow along with me and we'll get this started. Okay, so to do our measurements in metric, the very first thing we need to make sure of is that our job is configured in, not metric, in imperial units or inches, is make sure that we have set our job setup to inches and made the appropriate measurements. For a toolpath, I want to show you that I've created a tool that is in Imperial units. This is a copy of the SpeedTool W01005, but I've configured this in inches. We are going to allow for a max pass depth of 0.295 inches, which is beyond 1/4 of an inch, and our feed rate will be 40 and plunge rate 30, and that can of course be adjusted based on your particular machine setup. So now we'll switch over to our Toolpaths tab, and we'll start with a Vcarve inlay, but we're going to first highlight our first vector. And then we can do a Vcarve engraving toolpath. And we will go with a start depth of, not a start depth. Start depth is 0. This is the pocket side. Flat depth will be 0.236 inches, which is the equivalent of my normal measurements using the metric measurements. For our tool, we'll make sure we select that SpeedTool 10015 bit, which is configured as an Imperial unit bit. And we will go full depth on that. And we'll use a clearance tool of the SharpRo 1/8 inch tool bit, or 1/8 inch upcut end mill. That will not show up when we do the pocket side, but it will show up whenever we do our plug side. We'll give this a name of 0.236 underscore pocket underscore Imperial, or Freedom units for those of you that are inclined to refer to them as such. We'll go ahead and calculate those out. And as we see, we get our error telling us that we won't be using the 1/8 inch end mill, which is fine. We can click on OK. Generates our toolpath. And we can zoom out on that and run the toolpath. And we'll see we have our 0.236 inch deep pocket. Go ahead and close that out. And now we can generate another toolpath. And this time we're going to highlight our mirrored number 7 and its border. Going to use the same SpeedTool W1005 V-bit at 1/4 inch. But this time we're going to start our start depth at 0.158 inches and a flat depth of 118 inches. And we're going to use the SharpRo 1/8 inch upcut end mill, or any 1/8 inch end mill that you have. We will call this our 0.158-0.118 underscore plug underscore Imperial and calculate that out. And now we can run our clearance toolpath. You'll see that it uses the 1/8 inch end mill, and follow that up with our V-bit. Now once those are completed, what we want to do is take these three toolpaths and arrange them in a way that we can run them together, since this is a test. So we're going to move the pocket to the very bottom, and then we're going to make sure that the V-bit for the plug is one above that, and the 1/8 inch for the plug is above that. That way, when we run those three toolpaths as a single file, it will run them in the order of 1/8 inch end mill and then the V-bit. So now we can go ahead and export that out to the CNC and get it run, and we'll see what we've got. Okay, so here we're going to try to get a fit for our 0.158 inch plug into our pocket. As we see, we got a little bit of looseness there, so we're going to have to tighten that up just a little bit, as it comes in and out a little too easy. Okay, so we saw that our plug was a little bit too loose, so there's some adjustments we can make to improve the fit of the plug into the pocket. I'm going to give you two formulas here, one for if you're too loose and one for if you're too tight on your plug. If you're too loose, reduce the start depth and increase your flat depth. In both cases, your plug start depth plus your plug flat depth should equal your pocket depth plus 0.040 inches. So in our case, we will reduce our start depth, increase our flat depth. We'll go and even them out at 0.138 and 0.138 inches and see what we get. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and take our 0.158 and 118. We're going to duplicate that. And once we've duplicated it, you'll see that we have a 158 with a clear 1 and then a 1 in brackets. So that's the toolpath we're actually going to edit. And we're going to change that to a start depth of 138 inches. So we're decreasing our start depth. And we're going to change the flat depth to 0.138 inches. Oop. Get zoomed in there again so everyone can see that. That's again a start depth of 138 and a flat depth of 138. And we will rename the toolpath to 138 and 138. We'll get rid of that clear off of there. We'll calculate it out. And now we see we've got a 138 for the clearance and a 138 for the plug. What we will do there is arrange those again so that they are going to be run first with the 1/8 inch and then the V-bit. We don't need to do the pocket again since we have a pocket from our previous cut. We'll go ahead and export those out to the CNC and get them run. So as we see on the cut, we will have a clean inlay with no gaps around the pocket when it comes into focus there. A little bit of fuzzy, but we'll clean that up. Okay, so now let's move on to our Vcarve Inlay Toolpath. And the very first thing that I want to do is I want to delete that inverted or that mirrored 7, because when we create our toolpath, it's going to create that automatically for us. So we'll start by highlighting our vector that we're going to use for our pocket. And then we are going to go to our Vcarve Inlay Toolpath. And here we're going to set a start depth again, or a pocket depth of 0.236. And we will start off with a glue gap of 0.60 and a surface gap of 0.10. So the idea behind this is that we're going to use the formula pocket depth minus glue gap plus surface gap equals pocket depth plus 0.40 inches. And this should give us a good toolpath to work with. So we will go ahead, we're going to select our 1/4 inch SPI tool. We'll go ahead and select that, go full depth. We can remove that extra gap there. And we will call this VCIT for Vcarve Inlay Toolpath _ Imperial. And what we're going to do, we're going to do a vector offset of 0.25 inches, and that will create a boundary around our mirrored vector. So we'll go ahead and calculate that. Oh, looks like I typed that incorrectly. It should be 0.60. So let's try to calculate that again. And of course it says we may not be able to use the 1/8 inch on the upcut, and we're fine with that. So now we've got our toolpaths, and you see it made this offset vector. We're actually going to go back into our 2D toolpath. And what we will do is we will delete that vector, and we will do our plug, highlight both vectors, and calculate that again. And now we have our square vector offset. Now what we should be able to do is we should be able to go ahead and arrange these. Arrange them in order to where we are first using the clearance. So we need the plug first with a 1/8 inch end mill. And then we will go with the plug V-bit and the plug, or the pocket V-bit. We can delete this toolpath because it's not going to be needed. Let's go ahead and preview our toolpaths. And it goes with the pocket and then the V-bit, and There's our cut. We can go ahead and export these now and cut them out on the CNC. So as we'll see here in the clip, our plug is too loose at 0.060 glue gap and 0.1 surface gap. So we're going to have to use a formula to fix that. That formula is plug depth minus glue gap plus surface gap will equal the pocket depth plus 0.040 inches. If our plug was too tight, we would have our plug depth or our glue gap and surface gap decreased, and otherwise the formula is the same. So after working the parameters, I finally came to a good set of parameters where our glue gap is 0.12 inches and our surface gap is 0.16 inches. And this is again using the formula of pocket depth minus glue gap plus surface gap equals pocket depth plus 0.040 inches, or 0.040 inches. So with that formula, we finally got a good number. So now that I've shown you how to determine good parameters for end grain inlays using the Zank method and the Vcarve Inlay Toolpath, let's take a look at the special considerations for Facegrain inlays, which are less common but can still be tricky to get right. Let's take a look. Okay, so for our Facegrain, let's go ahead and start with getting our Zank method toolpaths. We'll start with the Imperial. We're going to duplicate that, and we are going to name that Imperial underscore Facegrain. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a toolpath or tool to this. We're going to take and add our speed tool W0100 tool bit again. Go ahead and select that, leave it at its proper depth. And what we will do now is we will edit the W1005 V-bit as our primary tool. What we're going to do for this tool path is make sure that we change our pass depth to 0.039. So this will make just a slight cut, and we'll go down every layer, but it'll only make a slight cut around the contour of the plug or of the pocket. So we can go ahead and calculate that out. And of course, it says we can't use the 1/8 inch end mill, which is fine. Now that we've changed that, let's reset our preview and let's run the pocket tool path. We'll run this about half speed, and you'll see it makes a run around the inside contour of the pocket. And now if we run our clearance tool path, okay, we will do our V-bit clearance tool first for our pocket. And you'll see that it will clear out the rest of that tool path, leaving us with our 0.236 inch deep pocket. Next, we need to duplicate our 0.138 plug. So we will duplicate that. And we will, again, we will add our V-bit in as a secondary clearance tool and select it. And we will edit our primary tool to only be 0.039 inches. Then what this will do will allow us to do that small cut all the way down. We'll rename this to Imperial _ Facegrain and calculate that out. Actually, we're missing a, there we go. Got the 7 highlighted. We'll calculate that out. Okay, and now if we calculate out, or we calculated out the toolpath, we can go ahead and run the V-bit Facegrain path first. And as you see, we get the contours. Next, we'll run the V-bit again to clear out the surrounding areas around the pocket, or the plug, sorry. And then finally, we will run the 1/8 inch toolpath, and it will clean everything up nice for us. Now, the order that we need to have these in is to have the clearance toolpath 2 for the Facegrain first, or have the Facegrain toolpath first, followed by clearance 2. And there is no clearance 1 because it won't fit in the pocket. Then we will do our V-bit for our plug, followed by clearance toolpath number 2, which is also the V-bit, and finalize it with the 1/8 inch end mill. And we export all of those paths out to the CNC, and we can go get them cut. Now, as we can see, we've got a pretty clean cut for the Facegrain there. When that's filled with glue, it'll look great. Okay, and the last toolpath we will do the Vcarve Inlay Toolpath for Facegrain. And what we'll find here is that we do it exactly the same as we do with our Zank Inlay method. We're going to keep our settings. Actually, let me close that one and get our good settings. And what we will do is we will edit our speed tool, and we will set our pass depth to 0.039 inches and select OK. And then we will add our V-bit again And this time we'll keep our original parameter there. So we'll go ahead and add that in. And we will call that Imperial Facegrain. And we'll go ahead and calculate that out. And when we run that on the CNC, you'll see the same results as you saw with the Zank Inlay method. In this video, I've shown you the methodology I use for determining Vcarve inlay parameters for both end grain and face grain inlays using Vectric Vcarve Desktop, Pro, and Aspire. If you found the information to be useful, please like and subscribe to my channel. You can also drop a comment in the video if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you the next time around. Here's some other videos I think you'll enjoy from my channel.